Hello, good afternoon. My name is John Tkaczewski. I'm the president and co-founder of FileCatalyst. Welcome to our October webinar. Today we'll be all talking about how to embed FileCatalyst API into your own Java application. We do have APIs for other languages as well as .NET and C++, but this specific webinar is going to be concentrating on our Java API. So we have here are the few things you will need to get this started if you want to try it on your own afterwards. You will need, first of all, a FileCatalyst server installed and ready to go. In this case here, this is my FileCatalyst server running. I have it running on port 21. I could also enable security on port 990 if I would want to do secure file transfers. And as well I could do SFTP. But what's important here is that port 21 because we'll be using this in our code. You also need to create a user where you're going to be transferring files to. And in this case here, I'm not transferring files as user API. I browse to the folder here. Here are some files I was just transferring before. So I'm just going to delete those. And that's all really what you need from infrastructure perspective. It's really just the FileCatalyst server with the user. You have to know the IP address of the host, and you need to know the port. You will also need a file fcapi.jar. This is the file right here. That's the main jar file that has all the client libraries for Java. If you have any questions during my webinar, please post them in the questions box in the GoToWebinar, and I'll get through them at the end as I'm finishing the webinar. So what we need to do here is that you have the FC API, which you need to download from our website as well. That's a jar file. The next thing what you need is an IDE. In my case here, I'm using something called NetBeans. It's a very standard IDE used by a lot of developers of Java products. But this can work with WebSphere and it can work with any other API you're using. So what we have here is that I create a brand new project. In this case, I called it FC API Basic Demo, and I went into the libraries of this project, and I added the FC API jar file. So anything that I run is going to be actually visible to my project. The API comes with its own documentation, set of documentation files. This is the set of documentation here. You can read about all the features and options in here. I'm going to be using some of them, but feel free to read them. The API also supports connecting to workflow and webmail instances if you want to create a job as well. But here we'll be talking about basic file transfer into the direct server. Once you have that imported here, then you can go into our documentation file here, and you actually have an example. Some examples already created. So the way I started is I started literally with just copying and pasting this example instead of working with it. So I just copy and pasted it into my new class, and here's the class I created, and I literally just copy and pasted it, and then I started changing certain things. So first thing I did is I had to provide it the host. In this case here, it's all running locally, so it's just my 127 loopback address. I also had to provide the username and password, which is here, API and 12345, as I showed you on the server. That was the user I created. I also had to specify what file I wanted to transfer. In this case here, we're going to be transferring a file in my C temp, and it's an executable. And this example is fairly simple, as it's a while loop that continuously transfers and shows the percentage transferred and sleeps for 1 second and then adds another percentage. And once this is done, it just disconnects. So that's the extent of this demo of the basic transfer. So if I run this file here, you can see here my progress is growing, and you can see that I'm running this right inside the API for my transfers. So this is a very simple, simplistic approach. It works. This example will work very well with batch files or command line files, where you kind of want to print progress on the command prompt. The next example I want to go into is much more advanced, and that one actually will use we'll actually be building a GUI application, an entire window application for transferring, uploading files. So that's on this transfer. So if I just go back into, let's just finish this example here. If I go into browse my folder now with the API folder, here's the file I just transferred. Let's just delete it, and now we're gonna open up the second example that I have prepared for you today, and that one is it actually creates a window application to transfer files. So I'm just gonna close one here so we don't get confused. And here's the other application. So this one is the process is very similar to the basic one, where I first had to include the CAPI library, but now I also had to create another component called the JFileChooser. JFileChooser is an application built in Java. It allows you to select files or folders. It allows you to apply filters to the selection. So for example, if a user is only allowed to select AVI files, you could apply a filter in JFileChooser on that. In my case here, I just left it wide open, so I can show you a generic transfer. So if you look at the JFileChooser here, here's my main code for this. So once again, the process is similar, where you have still the FC client API, like the way I imported it before, where I went into properties, libraries, and I added a jar file, and I added this FC API jar file. And this API here creates two things. Creates, first of all, the JFileChooser object, which will allow me to do a file selection. I can set a few things on it. For example, the title of it. I can set the filters. So here I have the selection mode set to files and directories, so it shows me everything. But you can apply filters as well based on the extension or file or folder type. You can also create a button to invoke the file chooser, and I added all of this to my panel. Now, when an action is performed, this is the method that captures any clicks on my application. If I see that the JFileChooser is clicked on, I select whatever the user selected from the file chooser, and I print out the selection, and then I start up the file transfer. As you notice here, I had to actually do this via a runnable in a thread, so my GUI would not look up while the transfer is going. So this allows me to do a full transfer, and then my log is really just a text area field that kind of just I keep on appending what's going on with the transfers. Upload file is very similar to my basic example. Once again, I put the host name, I put username and password, which is the same. One interesting thing I had to do here was the callback handler. And this is something that is built into our FileCatalyst API to allow you to decide what to do with if that same file name appears. So in my case here, the override callback handler, I just say yes to all. So what it means is that if I select a file and this file already exists on the server, it's just going to override it automatically. But of course, you could, via this callback handler, you could prompt the user whether you want to override or not, or resume, and so on. So it gives you an idea how to do this automatically, or if you want, you can do it manually by prompting the user. In this case here, I just did it all fully automated. And then I put in the selection here. The nice part is, because the selected file is really a file selected from FileChooser, and I set my file chooser over here to accept either files and directories, the nice part is that now I can upload either a file or entire folder from a selection. So by not writing any extra code, I just the upload method in the API will take care of that, and will notice, oh, you're doing a folder, so we'll upload a folder. And then the observables here. This is the observable example. So what happens is that I want my updates to appear as I'm uploading. I don't want the updates to appear at the end. And this wait here is just going to wait until the transfer is complete. And once the transfer is complete, it will disconnect and print file transfer complete. The updates, this is the observable methods that allow me to update my interface as I'm transferring files. So, and the main method is very simple. It just invokes this UI, sets the system look and feel to whatever is the system. So if you're on the Mac, it will look like a Mac. On Windows, it will look like on Windows. And we fire everything else. So to see how this looks like, I'm just going to run it here. And here's the example of how this looks like right now, file chooser demo. So I'm just going to select upload files. Here's my file chooser kicking in right now. This is all provided to me via Java with the look and feel of Windows, because I'm running on Windows in this case. And now I'm just going to select the file here to upload. And as you can see, the thread started in the background. The observable is updating my log or my text area, and file transfer is complete now. So if I go into my code here and I browse the file, the folder, here's the file I just uploaded. So the same idea applies now. If I go again here and select the same file, the file gets uploaded again because of the override callback handler that I set to always confirm overwrite and overwrite on everything, on every single file selection. This example works really nicely with folders as well. So if I go into here and I actually select an entire folder, you will actually see that it's uploading all the files in there. And now if I look in under my users and I browse for my users, you will see that there's a folder created. So you can see it's very easy to handle folders with the API as well as files. Some of the features of the API, all of it is documented in the HTML, in the help HTML. But just to give you some of the highlighted features here, we can do is we can auto-detect file transfer. So for example, we can do auto-detection. So if you want the API just to say, hey, tell me API if UDP or FTP is possible, or maybe only HTTP is possible. You can detect, the optimal route on the network. You can have it, of course, delete files, rename files on the server. You can delete folders recursively as well. So it's very easy to handle either a single file or a folder. You can also download files. Downloading files, you either have to know the exact path as it appears, or if you look at in our example, the second example here actually shows you how to handle a download. So what it will do, you have to first do a list, issue a list command, specify where you want to download file to, and then start downloading the file. See, so the list command allows you to extract what's on the server and select what needs to be downloaded. There's some other things you can do here. You can check if file already exists. You can put filters of what gets uploaded. You can set a compression on those files. If I'm uploading a whole bunch of text or log files, you can set the compression and the compression strategy. You can select how aggressive you want it to be with your bandwidth. That's one thing the FileCatalyst protocol is very good at, controlling your bandwidth. And yet, as API, you can tell it to be easy on your network, or you want to be more aggressive, you can do that as well. You can create zip, automatically zip, upload the file, and then the files are unzipped on the other end, which will, speed up the transfers. You can set your max retries, so if a file transfer ever fails, you can have it set by default. I think by default it's set to 3. So it will 3 times try to reconnect and resume the transfer. So automatic resume is already built in. Same thing with if you want to retry, that's already built in as well. So as you can see with that one command here, upload, I'm actually taking advantage of uploading files, folders, resuming and retrying any transfers, and as well as the UDPs are automatically enabled. So it doesn't take a lot of code. It doesn't take a lot of code to have specific functionality for in terms of retrying and making file transfers very reliable. You can specify timeouts. If you're on the satellite link, you might want to increase those. But once again, everything out of the gate is pretty much should be working fine. Another thing you can do here is also you can do MD5 transfers. So if you transfer a file and then you wanted to just transfer the same file again, you can set MD5 and transfer just sorry, not MD5, but the rsync. So you can enable rsync via this API as well. So if you send a file and then you're sending a second version of the file, we'll just send the deltas. You can do resuming, and as you can see, the list is quite includes a lot of features that we've talked about in our products, both on the hot folder and Express. All of these features are included as well in the API. So another thing I just wanted to point out here before I wrap up is that when you're actually transferring files with the API, I just want to show you how this would look like on the server. So I'm just going to run this file here. I'm going to open up my server here, show you the sessions. And as you can see, this will appear as any other file transfer in your system. So anything you can do with your existing transfers will appear on this system monitor here. So let me just do select a larger file. Here's a file. As you can see here, it will appear. And you can see the percentages kind of working its way through on the client and on the server. So that sort of wraps up our talk about API, from the basic transfers that you could use on a command line to something more advanced that you want to run within a window environment. If you have any questions, I can review those right now. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending. Let me just look at the questions here and respond to those. Okay, the question is FC API jar included with the FC server, or do we have to download separately? The API is not included with the server. You have to go to our download site to get it. And there's also another requirement, is that your license, depending on how you license your software, the server license on the server has to show you this entry right here, API. So making sure, otherwise if you don't have that, the API is not going to connect and it's going to give you errors. So just make sure that when you're connecting, you have your license key does allow you to do API transfers. Let me see if there's any other questions. What are the questions? I'm trying to, there's the attendee list. Where did the questions go? Unfortunately, I lost my question box. Okay, here I found it. Okay, there's a question about Android and iOS client. Is there any sample code showing that? Yes, our APIs for Android actually are listed on our website. If you go to our FileCatalyst.com website, and just go to SDK here. So as you can see here, here are some examples for the mobile APIs. So client API for Java, iOS, and Android. These are the Java examples. The entire webinar is based on these two examples pretty much, with a little bit more work where I use the JFile chooser. Android API is quite simple. It's the same jar file as FC API. It will work with your Dalvik deployment of your Dalvik deployment on Android, and Objective-C API is a separate download. And here's an example of how you would use the mobile API in Objective-C. Once again, the ideas are similar but in different language. Some of the advanced functionality, like maybe rsync or online sync, is not available in these, so it's a little bit more of a bare bones transfer ability. Let's see, next question. Is there a transfer of a directory considered a single session? Transfer of a directory is not, now depends what you're doing. That question is, if I select a folder and I feed it here into my example, for example, like I just did here, this would appear as a single transfer on your server. So if you remember, I selected a folder and you saw the single session coming in. Now, with the latest version of our software, 3.3, which is due to be released in the next 2 weeks, this actually, if you select the folder, this will actually start going over multiple sessions. So on the server, you will see 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions, whatever you configured the API to do. This will, first of all, it will speed up the transfer even more, but it also, it makes everything much more dynamic. You can still disable this feature if you want to have everything over a single session, but you can do that. But as of 3.2, yes, selecting a folder means one session on the server. Let me see some more questions here. That's all what I have for questions. Well, thank you very much for attending. We will have a video of this webinar recorded as well, and I will try to get those programming examples as well posted at the same time, so we can you can actually open these up in NetBeans and try it yourself. Thank you very much for attending once again, and have a good day.